Welcome to Listening with Heart, developing skills to apply in business and life. I'm very happy you decided to join me to either gain new knowledge or integrate what you may, on some level, already know. I'm Deb Porter, founder and owner of Hold, Hearing Out Life Drama. I'll talk just a bit more about Hold at the end of the presentation. It's important to me to get to the meat of what I'm offering today first. I know life happens, so if you get pulled away and never get to come back, you will have this gem to put in your pocket from this very first thought, what I'm calling the too long didn't listen slide. This is paramount. I believe the most important takeaway is that listening begins with you. It's imperative that we keep calm and stay present. This really is the key to being able to be not just a good listener, but a great one. Susan Silk and Barry Goldman, Barry is best known for his book, Emotional Intelligence, together wrote an article in the LA Times in 2013 titled Ring Theory, How Not to Say the Wrong Thing. I believe this pivotal piece, though older, is timeless. There's wisdom worth revisiting, even if you've seen it before. As you can see, Susan and Barry draw in the center the aggrieved or afflicted on their diagram. And then coming out from there is a person with a very strong emotional bond, either a significant other, a parent, a sister, a brother. And in the next ring out, we have true friends. Further out, colleagues. And finally, in the last ring, the looky-loos. They draw arrows to indicate that comfort needs to be directed inward based on where a person is in the ring and the emotional dump that needs to come out. Okay, so how does this help us when we're listening? It reminds us to be present to who we're listening to and where they are in relationship to us. The example that Susan and Barry use in their article is this. A woman is seriously ill in the hospital and her spouse and a lifelong friend visit. They walk out of the room and the friend turns to the spouse and says, "I knew she was ill, but I wasn't prepared for that." This lifelong friend dumped into the circle, not out. She did not listen with her heart. Instead, she lost her center and got drowned in her own emotional turmoil. She made the mistake of not being aware of herself, and as a result, dumped her feelings on a person who was already overwhelmed. What alternative choice could she have made? First, it's important we don't invalidate what she felt. Her feelings of sadness are real. Nevertheless, if she instead stays in her center, she remains aware that her role is further outside the circle, to listen with her heart and to stay open. So even though she's distressed, she contains that emotion, and she can take the opportunity to share with her spouse or a different friend of her own that she's careful to offer comfort, and she's careful to offer comfort into that circle. Let's consider another example. Let's say I'm a teacher and I'm speaking with a trusted colleague about an issue we're both having with the administration. In this scenario, we're both in the same ring. I may well need to set a boundary. I want to listen to you, but honestly, I'm right there with you. I don't think I can really help you discharge these feelings because I have them too. Both teachers need to find a listener who is further outside the circle. I think sometimes we forget that it's okay to set a boundary. And in fact, it can strengthen our relationships when we do. More, if we go into a conversation knowing the reason why the person wants us to listen, we will have a greater chance at a successful outcome. I think today, as a society, we are beginning to understand that if we say, "I just need to vent for a minute," then the listener knows what is desired. For instance, if I ask, "Be with me in this and let me get it off my chest," then I'm being really clear about what I need and want. Asked in this way, the goal is very clear. If, however, I say, "I don't know what to do, I'm really frustrated and this keeps happening," before we listen further, it's wise to ask, "What do you need from me right now?" Or "How can I help?" Because in that example, the outcome isn't clear. I might need help figuring out a way to solve the problem, or I might really just need someone to know I'm frustrated so that I can figure out my next steps on my own. So be clear on why you're being asked to listen so that you can define the outcome that is the goal. If we're really going to listen with our heart, we need to eliminate distractions. I've learned that I need to pay close attention when I start to feel emotionally uncomfortable. When I can feel my calm slipping away, that's when I'm most likely to let distraction come in. When it doesn't feel good, I want to get it off my mind. Pretty sure I'm not alone with this. Requires that we put more effort into making sure our phone stays put away. Additionally, we need to be honest about our time. If you're a manager and you know you have a meeting in 10 minutes, or you're a mom and you need to get an appointment when your best friend calls, be sure to start with you and be honest about what you can give, and don't attempt to go beyond it. Mr. Rogers is my life hero. He made people feel that nothing else in the world mattered when he was listening. Let's make that the goal we're all aiming for in our interactions. We can learn much when we understand what not to do. In Brené Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection, she writes about the importance of choosing a person to share our shame with. Brené says we want to make sure we avoid people who do these things when we're sharing the deepest parts of ourselves. Ultimately, listeners who do these things repeatedly lose trust and relationships. I have put my own twist here on Brené's list. Again, we want to avoid being a listener who does these things. First, the listener who volunteers as tribute. This listener gets so lost in the emotions of what you're sharing that now you have to make them feel better. This would be exactly what happened in the ring theory example with the friend and the spouse at the hospital. The scolder or judger. This listener either gets upset with you and how you handled the situation, or they get mad and they want to gang up on the person. Honestly, when have you ever walked away from a conversation when we felt judged and thought, oh, I feel so loved? It just doesn't happen. The problem solver. This person has missed the goal of the conversation and moved to the ideas of fixing before they're ready to be received. Men are often accused of this one, in part because of their socialization to do exactly this, but of course, women aren't exempt from it either. Again, when we get uncomfortable with feelings in a situation, this is another real pitfall. The hider. This listener diminishes what they've heard. It's not that bad. They want to sweep it under the rug. The denier. This listener denies your reality and says things like, you're exaggerating. It wasn't that bad. And they try to convince you, you rock. You're perfect. You don't need to worry. Finally, the listener who flips the conversation towards themselves or one-ups. They just don't stay tuned in. Now, if you're like me and you're nodding your head and going, yes, I get not to do these things. I have experienced all of this before, but what should I do? Be a listener who connects with compassion. Stay present and focused. Know what to shake off. That is, what isn't yours. Okay, great. So how exactly? Well, I've discussed the first piece. Be calm and centered. Next, while holding that center, start from where they are. If you look closely at the commonality among the what not to do listeners, this is what they all miss. They don't shift to really tune into the other person. Instead, each of them operates from their own ego. Start from where they are. To listen with heart, we have got to be able to hold our truth and know that what the other person is saying is true for them. In my mind, I see this like a beautiful Cirque du Soleil move with balance and precision that includes both people. Let's take another example. Let's pretend I'm at the park with my young child and I need to go home to make dinner, but my child doesn't want to leave yet. We're going to assume here that I have done my due parenting diligence by letting them know they have 5 minutes left to play and then we need to leave so that I can make dinner. 5 minutes passes and then I assert, we need to leave now. My child falls apart because they didn't want to leave the park. They are loud and making a scene. What happens if I get pulled off center? Perhaps I respond in anger, I warned you we had 5 minutes left, and drag my child away. If, however, I'm listening with my heart, I will get on my child's level. I will look them in the eyes and let them know, I hear how disappointed you are to leave the park now. It makes you sad. You don't want to go. We can discuss coming back tomorrow. Right now, though, I do need to make dinner. In this way, I've honored both of us. While my child may sniffle as we walk home, they know I heard them, and maybe we can start to talk about which salad dressing they'd like to choose. If we want someone to move beyond the feeling state they are currently in, we need to name and validate their emotions so they flow. If you struggle to find names for feelings, we have a link on our website to an excellent resource for that. It goes to the Center for Nonviolent Communication, and it's a list of feeling words that can springboard to get to what the feeling really is. Once a feeling's named, it can be validated, and then it can move along. Perception is reality. Really, perception is reality. And validating that reality is what helps us move forward. If we're listening to someone and they are emotionally dysregulated, that means they are not in control. And we know this because we've tried validation and they are still in free fall. Or maybe what the person shared caused us to lose our center and become dysregulated. Regardless, if either one of us becomes dysregulated, we need to hit that pause button. Continuing to engage at this point will not be successful. Let's use the park example again, knowing that I could just as easily be talking about an upset employee or a friend. Feelings of disappointment and sadness are the same regardless of our age. The difference is in how well we've learned how to manage those feelings and how well we've learned to regulate. So if I got angry at the park, I would need to get back in control because my anger pulled me out of center. Okay, how do I do that? This will vary for individuals as we each learn how to regain our calm in different ways. Focusing on breathing or meditating can calm us. Putting on music to the beat of 120 mimics our mother's heartbeats from when we were in the womb. Movement of some form works for many. Regardless, we have to self-soothe. We must know how to do this in order to truly listen with our heart. Dr. Bruce Perry writes in What Happened to You? Without some degree of regulation, it is difficult to connect with another person, and without connection, there is minimal reasoning. Regulate, relate, and then reason. Trying to reason with someone before they are regulated won't work, and indeed will only increase frustration, dysregulation for both of you. And so, reasoning is last. This is because we get to the highest part of our brain in order to be able to do it. Listening is relating. Employ compassion and reflect feelings and let them know, yeah, I feel that way too if that happened to me. What you're saying makes sense. Don't be afraid of the silence that may come after validation. This is often when processing happens, and words really aren't needed sometimes. Stay centered and be willing to shift enough to understand and start from where they are. My daughter is a black belt in Aikido, and I learned watching her practice that you can't pull someone over unless you get them off center, out of balance. One thing that is certain to pull someone off center is a violation of confidentiality. I can't stress enough that being careless when someone shares their truth with you will ensure they don't risk it again. Remember to know your limits. It's okay to ask to come back to a conversation if you get drawn off balance. It's also important to refer if someone needs skills beyond what you're capable of giving. It's wise to do so. It's compassionate. Oprah Winfrey said this in her masterclass on OWN. We want to know that we matter. We want to know we're heard and that what we had to say meant something. Whether you're talking to your boss or your friends, everybody in every conversation, and particularly in every argument or disagreement, just want to know, did you hear me? And did what I say mean anything to you? Yes, yes, that's all we want. But what if that's not what happens? What about those times that we miss? We did our best to listen, and we know in our gut it just didn't go like we hoped. We're sure the other person didn't hear that they matter. We are going to get it wrong. We are human after all. We can take the opportunity to change the outcome. I learned from a wise teacher the best gift we have is memory. I used to think she was wrong. Memories can be painful. How in the world could that be a good thing? However, I discovered that she's quite right, and this is true. We use our memory and our courage by going to the other person and saying, do you remember when this happened or I said this? If we yet again go back to the park example, it might sound like this. Remember when we were at the park? You were upset we needed to leave, and I got angry with you. I'm sorry I wasn't able to hear that you were sad about leaving. We use that gift of memory to repair. If we didn't quite get that relate part right by shifting to their point of view, or if we tried to reason before the other person had access to the higher part of their brain, or if the conversation started with time and energy to hear, but then we got pulled off our center, doesn't matter. Whatever went wrong, we have the gift of memory so that we can repair it. It is truly the best gift. Last, the way we really develop any skill in life is to practice with the intention of getting better. We decide we want to be a better listener, and then we work at it. I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found value. Again, my name is Deb Porter, and I am the owner of Hold, Hearing Out Life Drama. I know sometimes people need someone further outside their circle to really listen. We are less than therapists, but confidential listeners who work with intention at applying what you've heard today. We offer listening appointments for people to share whatever they need to, in whatever way they wish, in times of 15, 30, or 45 minutes, either by phone, text chat, or Zoom. We do offer business-to-business discounts for employers who want to sponsor time for their employees, demonstrating they care. We also have a pay-it-forward option for people to give a listening appointment to a stranger out of compassion. And we have gift certificates. Again, I hope that you found value today. And more than anything, I hope you'll decide that you're going to practice with intention and listen with your heart.